Chapter 3. Counseling and psychotherapy are value-laden processes, meaning many topics that the clients bring to us as helpers are conflicts in values. It is our job to embrace and understand the client's worldview in order to be of help to them. Even if we hold very different values, our ethical obligation is to assist our clients in meeting their own therapeutic goals, not our goals. Counselors are expected to set aside their personal beliefs and values when working with a wide range of clients. It may be helpful to remember that it is the client that has to live with the consequences of the changes that they make in counseling. On page 73 and 74, complete the self-survey as a way of self-discovery. You want to focus on your thinking, on the role of your values that will play in your work. There are no right or wrong answers to these statements, and this self-survey will not be shared with your instructor or other students. So take a few minutes to fill out the self-survey on values. Many difficulties that clients bring to us as counselors are because they are unsure of a correct decision. For example, whether to get a divorce, whether to have an affair, whether to leave their partner, worried about their children if they were to divorce, whether to stop drinking. The correct decision is difficult because of an inherent conflict in their values, or their values in someone else's values. For example, maybe I was raised in a certain religion, and we don't get a divorce in our religion, but then how do I stay in a relationship that is unhealthy? It is important to realize that your values and your correct decision may not be the right decision for your client. In fact, even if the client wants to know, what would you do in the same situation? The best advice is not the right advice for this client. It would be unethical to tell the client what you would do. Rather, the counselor's ethical response would be, "What do you think you should do?" Or something like, "There's no correct decision in this situation, but let's look at the pros and cons of the decision for your life." Help the client to explore their thinking more, or explore the pros and cons, or explore the potential consequences. Try on different decisions and really assess the decision from the client's point of view. In addition, it is unethical to refuse to work with a client simply because you do not agree with their values. For example, a woman is considering to have an abortion, but you have a pro-life value and feel that you cannot work with the woman. You must learn to work with clients with diverse world views and values. If you reject a client because of their world views, this can harm the client. If you are having difficulty maintaining objectivity regarding certain values, consider this your problem rather than the client's. Use your supervision sessions to work through this value conflict. Consider personal counseling and consider learning more skills to handle different certain circumstances. Ethical bracketing, a term here on this slide, is the setting aside of your own personal values in order to provide ethical and appropriate counseling to all clients, especially those whose worldviews, values, belief systems, and decisions will differ significantly from those of the counselor. It's important to know the definition of ethical bracketing. It will be on the quiz. Okay. There's some interesting court cases that your textbook goes through regarding counselors and value conflicts. In the Ward versus Wilbanks, in this case, the student counselor at a university, Julia Ward, was very vocal about her Christian beliefs that homosexuality was wrong and that heterosexual affairs were also wrong. And when she was randomly assigned to work with a gay client, Julia refused and requested that the client be transferred to another student. The university refused to honor the request to transfer the client, and instead offering the student, Julia Ward, a remediation plan with extra supervision so that she could keep her own values away from the counseling relationship. The university stated that the student needed to learn to work with clients who have diverse views. The court ruled eventually with the side of the university, stating that students do in fact need to learn to work with clients with diverse views, and that the university had provided adequate supervision and a plan to help the student with this process of learning. But since the student did not agree to participate in the learning, the student was then dismissed from the program. In a similar case at another university, in Keaton versus Anderson-Wiley, the student was also ultimately dismissed because she could not separate her own religious values, condemning homosexuality, from the counseling relationship. The student declined to participate in the remediation plan prior to her learning to handle value conflicts in the counseling relationship, and the student was ultimately dismissed from the graduate program. The university won the right of enforcing standards expected of students in the counseling program. Here are some other examples of common value-laden issues that are commonly addressed in counseling. As you read through the list, assess your own comfortableness in working with clients that present these issues. Can you remain neutral? Can you give both sides of the decision? As you read through the rest of Chapter 3, there are several examples of issues in these areas. So the final implications is that counselors may not deny professional services to individuals belonging in a protected class based upon the counselor's values. The referrals are appropriate if it's based on the lack of skill-based competency. The focus of ethical referrals is on the needs of the client, not on the values of the counselor. To avoid client abandonment, which is also an unethical action, a referral should be considered as an option of last resort. So, to summarize Chapter 3, ultimately it is the responsibility of the client to choose which direction they will go, what values they will adopt, and what values they will modify or discard. Remember, as the counselor, it is your obligation to have ethical bracketing, in other words, setting aside your own values so that you can work with the client. Referring the client to someone else, even if that person has similar values as the client, may not be the ethical appropriate action and may even be discriminatory. I think the other summary of Chapter 3 is to use your supervision. Your supervision, whether that be at your agency or at Questa during your internship, use your supervision to learn about ethical bracketing, how to set aside your own values, how to remain neutral, and how to explore what is the values that the client will adopt and what they may modify or discard.